Hello and welcome to another episode of Flowing Friday. This week we'll be looking at a data set which includes the happiness index, and we'll be trying to figure out a key question which bothers a lot of human beings is whether money can buy happiness. So the data set that we'll be looking at is the global happiness index, which breaks down the happiness index based on 4 or 5 parameters for the whole world, broken down by country, and then we'll be trying to correlate it with the GDP per capita data and trying to figure out if there's any correlation between these two. So some of the aspects that we'll be looking at today is union. This is a relatively newish feature of Tableau, and then we'll be talking about data blending, where we're as I said, we are talking about 2 types of data, the happiness index and the GDP per capita. Then we'll be looking at how to visualize these 2 things to present it. A couple of options will be presented. One is a slope graph and one is a lollipop charts. 2 very interesting and visually appealing charts. And then in the end we'll be looking at one new feature of Tableau 10.3, which is just arrived about 1 week ago, which is a tooltip selection, and it makes presenting your data and trying to figure out and analyzing data very easily. So let's quickly get down to the data that we'll be looking at. So head down to kaggle.com and download the World Happiness Report of 2016. The data that you'll get will be 2 files. So I'll just drag one of these files to the window and to bring it up, and you'll see the 2 files available to us. They've already brought in 1 file right now, and basically what they've done is they've got 2 files, one each for 2015 and 2016. So this data is for 2015, and to union this, it's very easy. I think it was brought about in version 9 or 9.3 last year, and the way to union it is just to drag it to the data window, and you'll see a drag table to union, and just leave it over here. So now you've got a new data set. Okay, let's see what is the problem. I think the problem might have been resolved. Let's see, let's try to bring in these 2 table names. Okay, so we've got the data. So what the union does is just brings in unions to 2 tables and just adds a column in the end which shows which file this data is coming from. So this is what I've done. So let's start from the beginning and try to figure out how we can start to visualize this data. So the first thing that I want to see is how has the happiness levels changed over time between 2015 and 16. So for that, since I know that the table name is actually the heirs 2015 and 16, so we can easily change the aliases of these. So to just say 2015, we don't need to change it into a date format because we will not be these are the only 2 years that we'll be using, so we don't really need a specific date format for this, and very easily this is the happiness score. So we'll bring it into the visualization and change the mark type to line. So now we have a summation of happiness scores for the whole data set between 2015 and 16. So if we see the sum, in fact a better measure would be average to see the sum. So if we see the average in 2015 was 5.37 and in 2016 it was 5.38, so it increased by around 0.01 percentage points or whatever basis points. So now to make the slope graph, the easiest thing to do is to bring in country to the detail, and now we have these lots of graphs, lots of lines, each line representing 1 country, and a better way to do it, because now it's a hodgepodge of countries, a better way to do it is to bring in these countries to the filters shelf and show them. In fact, this is not the thing that I wanted to do. We basically should bring in the regions. select all and bring in this show filter and change this filter type to uh, um, single value list, so we can have a look at each country. And as we know, as we can see, that most of the data is between 2.5 and 7.5 of happiness index. No country under 2.5 of happiness index, so we can fix it to 2.5 to make the visualization a little better. So now when we choose a region, we can see what's happening, and we can also bring the country to label to see what's happening. So that is one way to do it. Another visually interesting thing that we can do is to create a calculated field to show like in our actual visualization in the beginning, we could see that countries which have increased their happiness score between 2015 and 16 are shown with red, orange, and the ones which have decreased are shown with blue. So we'll do something similar on this graph. So we'll create a calculated field, and this calculated field is basically just a Boolean function, increase and decrease. So we'll just create a lookup function which looks up the value of the happiness score for the first value, and compares it to whether it is greater than the lookup of the happiness score of the last value. So since there are only two values, we can use the offset as in fact we'll have to do a sum over here to aggregate it, because table calculations you have to use an aggregate. Okay, so this is what is a Boolean function which is looking at increase or decrease, and we bring it to color. And now we can see that countries which have increased their and then we have some nulls, because there are some countries which have some data for 2015 and there's some data for 2016. So we'll just bring it to the filter shelf and remove the nulls. Let's look at the Lollipop chart. So this is another way to visualize data, an interesting way to visualize data also. And for this also I've used it a filter of a region, because we've got a dense data set. There are a lot of values, a lot of countries to look at, so it's better to look at each country from the perspective of its region. And obviously, since this is an economic type of data, it's a better way to look at it from a regional perspective. Where does this country sit with regards to its regional partners? So when we are working with dense data where you have a lot of data points, you'll have to filter your data and visualize your data according to some kind of aggregation or filtering. So the good thing about this Lollipop chart is that you can see that countries which have increased, we can quickly see which countries have increased their happiness score across the 2 years. And it's the directional Lollipop is actually a very good way of telling us that, which very quickly visually telling us that Mongolia had increased its happiness score in 2016, and South Korea decreased by quite a lot. And the size of the bar actually is a good visual representation. So let's see how we can build this graph in Tableau. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is to bring in the country in the visualization, and then the second thing that we need to do is to bring in the happiness score. Okay, so when we convert it into a Gantt, so this is what's happening. So how a Gantt works is that this line that we're seeing is actually the last measure, and the way we create the line on it is to create kind of to put some kind of measure on the size. So the size, we want to size it by the difference which is available between 2015 and 16. So right now the happiness score of each country is a sum of happiness scores for each for both the years. So basically, first we have to create a calculated field for the happiness score of 2015 and a happiness score for 2016. So let's create this. Okay. If table name is equal to 2016, then happiness score. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so this is the 2016 happiness score, and we can duplicate it to get the 2015 score as well. Okay, so let's see if anything is coming. It's showing 2016 nulls. So basically what we're doing, we'll have to change it to 2015.csv because we've been using aliases. Okay, and same. So we'll have to use the real values in the not the aliases, so we can't use the aliases. And then basically we'll create a calculated field of the difference of these two scores, so which will just be 2016 minus 2015. Okay, so let's go down to creating the difference is actually the size, and okay, so this is 3.75. Okay, so now we've got two measures. So the second one is actually a circle, and this we'll have to send it to as a dual axis chart. So now we have you can see that we have the directional part of it. So we've got two marks over here. Okay, so let's bring the difference to the size, and now we have got this bar going on. We'll just reduce the size of these to show what's going on. So also for sum of 2016, we'll just reduce the size a little bit, and now we've got the difference. And we can also put the difference on color to be able to show which ones decreased, which ones increased. Okay, so, and we can actually edit the colors to only have two colors, so that there's no difference. And you can take some very bright colors to actually have a good representation of what we are looking at. Okay, so now we have this slope graph, and again we'll bring the regions to the filters shelf and show the filters, and do the same for the region and as a single value list. So now we see that the list of countries, Albania, it decreased its happiness score. Armenia is relatively stable. A few countries, Bosnia, it's increased. Latvia, it's increased. Romania has increased. Let's look at South Asia as we looked at before. And in fact, what you need to be doing is to synchronize the axis. So we see that some of the graphs, some of the points are disconnected. So it looks fine now. So as we saw earlier, Nepal and Sri Lanka are the only countries in South Asia which have increased their happiness index in the last 2 years. Okay, so let's move on. Moving forward, let's look at a scatter plot of this. This is the interesting part now. So let's look at the scatter plot of how these countries' happiness scores measures with the correlate with the average GDP of these countries. And for that, we'll be doing data blending. So the data blending is done by adding a new data source. And as we know that GDP per capita is already available to us in the world indicators which is provided with Tableau itself. So we'll just connect it to that, and this is the union data set. So we'll bring in let's see, where's the country, if country is there or not. Okay, so we have the country in both data sets. So we'll just when we drag in the country, and just to check out the data, the quality of the data, let's bring in the happiness scores for each country. And now let's connect it to the data source and also bring in the GDP. Okay, so first of all, as you can see in the data, we don't have a GDP per capita, so we'll have to create that. And it's a very easy calculation to do. We just bring in the data, the GDP divide. In fact, we'll bring in, this is the same solution as the profit ratio scenario in which is a very common phenomena in Tableau exercises, and the total population. Okay. Okay, so this is GDP per capita. Okay, so now we have this field, and we can bring it to the show me, and see that let's try to aggregate by, okay, so we got sort. But we can see that the list of countries which have, for example, Switzerland has a huge GDP per capita. Okay. So first of all, we'll have to also filter by one of the countries. So let's only look at the GDP per capita of 2016, or we could look at an average of happiness scores for 2015 and 16, but just for simplicity's sake, let's only look at 2016, the latest data. And so this is where we are. So now that we know that the data set is actually clean, we can just bring in this over here and this over here, and filter it by detail, put the country on details shelf. So just quickly, we can figure out that Luxembourg, for example, is one of the countries which is up there as with regards to GDP per capita. Qatar is there, Norway is there, and if we create a trend line over here, we can it tells us a fair idea that GDP per capita has a very good correlation with the happiness of the country. So as the GDP per capita increases, the happiness scores also increase. It doesn't come as a surprise to us. Bring in GDP per capita just to bring in a little more emphasis on the countries with high GDP per capita, because a lot of this the countries which are down there, they get this lost in the mix. So we'll just change it to that. Okay, so the way tooltip selections work is you have to bring them into the into your selection, into your tooltip, and then you bring them to your, insert them into your tooltip selection menu. So now when we click on one of the options, we can now select that dimension from the list, and when we click on the dimension, it highlights all the countries within Western Europe. So this is a good way of, even though we can very quickly see, it just adds another level of visual cues that we could have used the color for the region which we used earlier, but now that we are using the color for GDP per capita, we can use this way to actually filter by the region and very quickly see how these the data set is filtered across the whole region, and how the data is distributed across the region. We can use it similarly for Latin America, so we can see the Latin America, all of it is down there. So this brings us to the end of the Flowing Friday session. Please do comment about anything that I might have missed, or you want me to continue or take up in the next videos. Thank you.